Right on. It's a really cool story. And just right there, I think that might have some people scratching their heads because they hear mining and they think humic acid, and they're not, might have trouble bridging the two together. And I know there's a lot of sources of humic acid, but from a mining perspective, can you talk about the mine that you guys have and how and what type of humic acids derive from that?
Sure. So we'll just kind of go from a macro view about humic substances and kind of narrow it down. So humic substances are the end result of decomposition. So compost, manure, peat, all of those things ultimately after they break down will convert into a humic or fulvic acid. That's the end result of their decomposition cycle through microbial activity. So each humic acid deposit will vary based on age, rank, parent material, the things that you can imagine. The deposit we're mining now is like the Amazon forest millions of years ago. That's all it is all that old plant material that's stacked up. So there's several occurrences of those plant type deposits over the millions of years. So you'll see humic deposits that are 20,000 years old, and some like ours that are millions of years old. But that's all it is basically an ancient forest is what we're digging up, what would be the forest floor. So humic substances, they're common. They're in every soil and every water in the world. It's just these deposits are very concentrated because of that plant material that formed them.
From a lot of movies, you think Jurassic Park and stuff, things that have decayed over time result in all sorts of different substances from diamonds, enough organic matter decomposes, put under pressure, you get diamonds. And further up that scale is coal. And then maybe I'll even put peat. I know peat's formed in a bog, so it's like an anaerobic condition. But where does humic substances, where do they fall kind of between forest floor material as if we walked out in the forest today and dug down a little bit into the soil and coal?
Yeah. So, you covered a couple of really good points. And eventually, yeah, with enough heat and pressure, our deposit would have turned into diamonds. But it's sure good that we caught that before that happened. We didn't want to ruin such a good resource.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but yeah, you have a humification process and then a coalification process. And the humification process is actually taking those plant components like cellulose, lignins, hemicellulose, things that made up the cell walls. The microbes are destroying them, breaking them down. What happens is they get broken down to where the microbes aren't eating them anymore, and they start kind of polymerizing and recombining. And that process is your humification process. And then later, when you have heat and pressure, it turns them into hydrocarbons and actually makes coals and those other things. So we're kind of in the middle between a peat bog and having the heat and pressure to eventually turn that peat into coal. So you've got kind of that. If you were doing a rainbow, where peat is on one side and then coal on the other, you would be somewhere in the middle where you no longer have recognizable plant tissue. You couldn't look in there and say, oh, there's some roots or leaves. It's all been broken down by the microbes.